All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We are indeed live. Thank you for tuning in, folks. In today's broadcast will be a little bit different. I will be covering the the American GOP's debate. So that should be fun, folks. For my end, I've always been a bit of a political nerd, and so now that I've been doing YouTube, and the American elections are starting to heat up, I figure, hey, why not take a look at this stuff live alongside you guys, since this is what I would be doing in my free time anyways. So now for that music, let me know if you guys can hear me. Hope you all are doing okay. I see some funny ass fucking comments in the description. So let's see what y'all are saying. Crypto Bendu saying, I hear feet pics are worth money. Figure get AI to create a cute girl and pass off as real. Collect OnlyFans money and then parlay into more crypto coins waiting for bull run. That's actually not such a bad idea. Or you can just wait in DCA using dirty fiat from a soul-sucking job until bull run. Yeah, man. I mean, your sentiment is definitely shared with many for sure. Take off the McDonald's hat. You only need P-Dye and a Tropa, $1 peg, and give up the day job, man. You guys in your Atropa P-Dye. I haven't been following too closely, but I've been seeing P-Dye all over crypto Twitter and stuff, and it's been quite hilarious. It's been on a tear, so shout out to you guys. Good for you guys. I'm not chasing that. This ecosystem is already high risk enough. There's no, well, I was gonna say there's no need, but I mean, hell, it's the only goddamn thing pumping. So, it's funny. What is risk, right? Is risk the thing that's going up, or is risk the thing that only goes down? It's kind of funny. So, I'm not really touching that. It's generally not a good idea to chase a parabolic pump, but for you, for those of you guys who got in early and you're up, good for you. Whenever you're up tremendously on a highly speculative, volatile meme coin whose long-term future is extremely rather dubious, more so than than some other projects, I would personally be taking profits if I was up quite a bit, but you do you, boo. I am Brandon B, the master of coin and protector of gains, but I'm not your financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. I see Corey Costa, Crypto Coins. What up, man? Good to see you. Good to hear from you. Saying, bro, these prices are so depressing. Richard, nowhere to be found. What a poop show. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It is a poop show, folks. So, it has been quite some time since I've streamed on the channel, since the news of the SEC went out, the day of the SEC news where it was declared that Richard Jarr is being sued and Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex are attempting to be labeled securities. I went live that one day and haven't really been live since, just because there's not a whole lot of news. This major news event sucks. It's going to act as a suppressant and a depressant until it gets resolved. And that hasn't changed, and it's probably going to suppress the price for as long as it goes down, for as long as it is unsolved, and that's what's been happening. So, in my opinion, folks, I'm just gonna. There's no point in selling for myself. Like, we're down, so I'll speak for myself. I'm down so much. It doesn't make any sense for me to sell into extreme fear. I mean, hell, folks, I mean, I'm looking at my screen here. Pulse Chain is 0.040 and 38. Yeah. And I mean, hell, that could end up being the fucking macro all-time bottom, right? So I don't know if it's the bottom. We could continue to fall further. What I do know in a little I've learned the last couple of years is that selling into extreme fear is typically not a good idea. We have nothing but macro bullish catalysts ahead. We have Bitcoin halving, we have scaling solutions for Ethereum, we have quantitative easing, we have the lowering of interest rates within the next 1 or 2 years. So with nothing but macro bullish catalysts ahead and bearish things that could have happened already have happened, for me, it's just there's no point in selling now. This has always been a long-term game. The game has always been to wait until like mid 2025. That's still the situation. And so while I previously might have been more hopeful that we could have seen perhaps some pretty good gains in the meanwhile, it really seems like we're gonna have to wait quite a while for the crazy gains to happen. In the meanwhile, I wouldn't be surprised if we have relief rallies. I wouldn't be surprised if we, test the heights of certain ranges, so yada yada yada. But in terms of like 10x's plus, that ain't happening until 2025, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So, folks, like for me, I gotta be honest with y'all. Like I mentioned, I haven't been so active on YouTube. I have been pretty active almost on a daily basis on Twitter. So, folks, if you want to find me more active, then you could definitely check me out on my Twitter. Link for that down in the description below. And guys, look, I fucking hate looking at this chart. I'm down tremendously. This sucks. This is a very objectively bad situation. Richard Hart, who prided himself and advertised himself as being a public thought leader, has now resorted to tweeting out obscure tweets about AI, where maybe AI has been tweeting for him on his behalf. Look, guys, I don't know for sure what's going to happen with this retarded ecosystem. The SEC stuff has most definitely, heightened the risk for sure. But what I do know is that historically speaking, guys, it pays to be early. It pays to get in at a good valuation. It pays to buy things that everyone's wrongly dismissing. It pays to buy into extreme fear. And there's no guarantee that this will work out in the end. The risk has most definitely increased. But what I can say is that all these lessons I've learned about getting in at a goddamn good valuation, getting into, all the things I just said, that's exactly what we're seeing now with Pulse Chain. So if there ever is a positive result with this whole SEC debacle, then I think in that case, moving forward, this ecosystem looks much brighter. Yeah, so that's kind of my feelings, folks. I wanted to update y'all in that regard. Now I see 69 Hex 69 in the chat saying it's all good, bro. Once all that shit blows off, we go moon. I think so. I hope so. If it happened to XRP, we are golden. Exactly. It's just a question of how long is that going to take? Is it going to take a year? Is it going to take 2 years? Is it going to take 3 years? We don't know. We don't know. I'm still holding for the long term, but this situation is most definitely not good. It is not good. So speaking of not good, folks, we have a upcoming presidential debate. I'm kidding. No, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit of a political nerd. I do like following politics. Some people like following sports. Some people like gambling. I like politics, and so in my free time, I tend to follow some of these things. I'm a bit of a political nerd, and so with the American presidential debate starting to heat up, especially on the Republican side, I figure, since I'd be watching this stuff on my own privately, why don't I share the stream with y'all and perhaps, share a thought or two. And at the very least, we can all be a little bit entertained. So, in terms of what I have lined up and planned, I want to attempt to see the Fox News presidential debate live. We'll see if we have any luck with that. Sometimes YouTube likes to take down streams that live stream the debate. Also, the former president Donald Trump will not be attending tonight's first Republican GOP debate. He will instead be he instead conducted an interview with Tucker Carlson, former media figure at Fox News, very popular. And so they will be, I believe they'll be streaming their pre-recorded interview, 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At least that's the idea. So let's see. My kind of thought is to jump in between the live stream and the pre-recorded interview with Tucker Carlson. Perhaps focus on the live stream since it is indeed live, and we can come back to the Trump thing afterwards. I'll probably focus on whatever I find most interesting at that moment. I also have the David Pakman show, who's doing debate coverage pulled up just in case we're getting a better feed with them, maybe hear some of his perspective. I have some polling data pulled up. So yeah, guys, we're just gonna have a chill night here. Might play some music if there's boring parts. We'll see, and just watch the Republican debate. This stuff is my jam. When the Democrats have their version of this, I'll get up to it. I am Canadian. I have publicly stated that before. And whenever the Canadian elections start to heat up, I'll be covering that as well. Really, any election around the world I find interesting. Perhaps maybe the UK stuff, French, German stuff. We'll see. But yeah, folks, that's kind of what I had in mind in terms of kind of tonight. What I had, of course, if you guys are interested, in the meanwhile, while there's commercials, while we're waiting, we could always take a look at some charts and stuff. So we can definitely do that. Yeah. Okay. So just give me a moment here, folks, and I'll get set up on my side. By the way, let me know if you can hear me okay in the comments. I would greatly appreciate that. I'm just going to set up on mine. Forgive me, folks. Yeah, so if you guys could kindly, again, just let me know if you can hear me, if my audio is coming through okay. Sounds good? Yeah, Crypto Bandu, perfect. Thank you, my guy. Thank you very much, very mucho. Okay, just getting ready. Also, another thing too, for some reason, I have a bunch of tabs open. I might be lagging a good bit. So as long as you guys can hear me okay, then we'll proceed moving forward. As well, like I mentioned, I have like dozens of tabs open. So if we have a little bit of buffering, please bear with me, folks. We'll have to bear through the occasional advertisement as well. But yeah, okay, so let's start delving into it. Davis is saying alpha. Folks, by the way, like, subscribe, share the stream, all that good stuff. So the debate is supposed to start at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's in about 12 minutes from now. The Tucker Carlson interview with former President Donald Trump should begin 5 minutes beforehand. I'll try and tune in a couple minutes before to check out some debate coverage, and maybe we can comment on that. But beforehand, just to get a bit caught up, that way we're all on the same page, why don't we take a look at some polling results just to see where things are at, because I think there are some interesting kind of polling stuff. So let me share my screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite kind of go-to places for different kind of pollings and different kind of political races is Real Clear Politics. And according to Real Clear Politics, Trump is currently well ahead in terms of favorability on the Republican side of things. And what's quite interesting is that Trump's recently been facing a bunch of indictments and such, and his polling has only been increasing, which is pretty funny. Oh, look, this is kind of interesting too. So apparently, Joe Biden's favorability ratings is about a point or so higher than Donald Trump's. His unfavorability ratings is also a bit better than Trump's as well. Quite interesting. Trump is quite a polarizing figure. Also, DeSantis, which seems to be kind of the establishment anti-Trump, second place go-to pick, he has just been tanking in the polls. And so in my opinion, he has to have a fantastic showing tonight, because with Ramaswamy gaining in the polls and DeSantis just going down, down, down. The more he campaigns, that's not a good sign. He needs to definitively show signs of reversing that trend for him to be considered a serious second place contender, because by far Trump has the support of the base. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys followed the kind of 2016 elections, but I followed them pretty closely. And I remember one of the most hilarious, embarrassing things was when Ted Cruz, who utterly despises Trump personally, I mean, Trump was attacking the looks of his wife. And it's obvious that Ted Cruz, I mean, any human being would not personally like Donald Trump. But because Trump has so thoroughly, garnered the support of the Republican base, all these Republican politicians who legitimately behind closed doors hate Trump. I mean, even Tucker Carlson has said behind the scenes and kind of leaked memos and leaked videos how he despises Donald Trump. But all these people are forced to make believe like they actually like Trump because he's so popular. He's really garnered the support of the base, and so to see him continue to get this lead, Trump is obviously the front leader on the Republican GOP side of things. DeSantis, I mean, I haven't been seeing a whole lot of DeSantis. From the little I've heard, he seems pretty boring. I look forward to seeing how he performs on tonight's debate. Who I have seen, who I think is very interesting, is Vivek Ramaswamy. He's been on a bunch of podcasts. He's been all over the place doing tons of interviews. And so while I don't think he'll win, I definitely think he's a super interesting candidate. I think Ramaswamy brings a lot of substance to the Republican side that's definitely lacking. I mean, DeSantis is nothing but boring. Pence is stuck in the 1980s. Trump, while he's very popular, I mean, even I think Trump supporters would agree that Trump's strong suit is not, his substance and his detailed policy plans. No one, even Trump supporters, will admit that. That's not Trump's kind of go-to, right? So yeah, it's kind of some interesting polling results that we're seeing there on that end. Taking a look kind of over here. Who's ahead in the national polls? Yeah, Trump, DeSantis keeps on going down. Ramaswamy slightly picking up. I think Ramaswamy is very likely, in my opinion, to benefit from tonight's debate showing if he does indeed deliver a good performance. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm an active online. I'm a YouTuber. I see Ramaswamy all over every single major podcast that will go on. He's been doing very quite well. I think he does well long format. We'll see how well he does in this debate stage. But I think someone like Ramaswamy only benefits from kind of this more mainstream exposure. DeSantis, I mean, this is his to lose. He has to start showing more of a positive uptrend if he's going to be considered any kind of serious contender to Trump. But at the end of the day, given this polling, I mean, Pence is going nowhere. He's stuck in like I mentioned before, stuck in the 1980s. DeSantis, I don't think has what it takes to beat Trump. I mean, like all these people are trying to be, light versions of Trump. But why would you vote for the light version of Trump when you have the real thing? I mean, the only thing that I could see taking down Trump is him being like behind bars or something, because with such a ginormous lead and everyone else just being a light version of him, I don't see that anyone has what it takes to defeat Trump. Ramaswamy, I find interesting. I find him more substantive than everyone else from the little I've seen of him. So I would like to see him continue to do well. I would like to see him flip DeSantis in the polling, just to bring a bit of substance and policy detail, to the political landscape. I mean, guys, at the end of the day, like you should be like a real policy geek, a policy nerd. You should be like, if you're a leader, you should be like down you know, in the in the grimy details of politics. And if you want to be an effective policymaker, and Trump isn't that guy, in my opinion. Trump is an extremely good public speaker. He's managed to garner the Republican base like no other Republican politician has been able to do so. And so I think while Trump is an extremely good politician, I don't think he's an extremely thoughtful person when it comes to a detailed well thought out, well nuanced, you know, policy on how to deal with energy infrastructure. Right? He's not that kind of nerdy kind of guy, but I think Ramaswamy is willing to delve into a bit more of those details. So it'll be nice to see if we get a bit more of that in tonight's coverage. Let me know if you guys agree with me or not. Also, on the Democratic side, Joe Biden is clearly in the lead. Kennedy, unfortunately, seems to be not able to make any ground on Biden. If you know, I say unfortunately, if you're a Kennedy supporter, no, from what I've seen with Kennedy, I think he's very, very interesting for sure. I think Kennedy also appeals to a bit of a more moderate mainstream um, crowd that I think is also a bit anti-establishment that Biden doesn't, and so I think Kennedy can kind of play that role where he, you know, where he's likable to a bit of the establishment, but also to some of the non-establishment as well. What I would personally love to see in terms of a debate is Kennedy versus Ramaswamy. I think that would probably be one of the most substantive debates we would see. I mean, Biden is just talking points, and then Trump is just, you know, Trump, right? It's not, there's not really a whole lot of detailed substance, in my opinion. But I think Ramaswamy versus Kennedy, that I think that would be like a interesting debate, just in terms of like, you know, political nerd, you know, delving into the details, the nuances of like different policies. Like, you know, I can imagine these guys, you know, delving into the nuances of like energy infrastructure and like copper mining, how copper mining affects the grid and that kind of stuff. You know, we could never see Biden or Trump. Could you imagine Biden or Trump delving into those kinds of nuances? Not really, right? So while we probably won't get to see that, I would like to see that in terms of what would be an interesting debate or conversation. I hope these guys behind the scenes set up some kind of debate that's outside the infrastructure of the RNC and the DNC. Like if Kennedy, you know, if these teams were smart, if I was like on Kennedy's team, I'd be like, guys, enough of this mainstream media that everyone's bored of. Let's hit up the Ramaswamy campaign, who's young go-getters, you know, who are native to the internet. Same thing with the Kennedy team, and let's set up a debate, a conversation, you know, just ourselves outside the mainstream media, and let's us set the narrative. You know, that's one reason why I think Trump was so successful, is because he's constantly setting the narrative. He's constantly on the aggressive side of things, in which makes everyone else act on the defense. Everyone has to react in react in regards to what Trump has said, the narrative that Trump is laying down. And I bet we'll see even in tonight's debate, a lot of the phraseology will be in defense of the former president. And so he's really getting to set the narrative. And so if these teams got together, I think they would benefit from setting the narrative more so themselves, given how internet native they are. But, you know, that's just me. We probably won't see that. What are you guys saying here in the comments? Kennedy is being shadow banned. They'll just steal it again. Does anyone hear Flecka's talks? Trump is the man. Sure, guys. So let's see if the debates are starting here. How soon they'll start. Let's see. Let me just refresh. If we get a bit of buffering, just let me know. Folks, in the meanwhile, please like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Forgive me. Oh my god. Okay, there's that commercial playing that was loud as shit. All right, I don't know if you guys heard that. Forgive me. I'm just refreshing the page, seeing if the debates have started, seeing if the coverage has indeed started. If not, we have some clips from the Tucker Carlson interview with Trump and some Rudy Giuliani stuff we could refer to. In the meanwhile, if we're having issues pulling up the debates. So just give me a moment here, folks, and we'll get started soon. Guys, let me know in the comments, who do you want to see lead the Republican Democratic ticket? I'm curious as to the political leanings of my, you know, mostly crypto audience here. You know, I have some intuitions as to, you know, where some of y'all might be leaning, given the crowd that crypto tends to attract But I'm curious. Let me know. Would you guys like to see Ramaswamy versus Kennedy debate? Do you guys want to see Trump beat Biden? Let me know down in the comments. And again, forgive me on mine if you see any buffering. Things are loading. It does seem like the debate is getting started here. Once this is done buffering, I'll share my screen here. Hopefully, I'll be able to get live access to the Fox News debate without having to watch it through the David Pakman show. If we do, that's okay, just because there'll be that commentary from his end. So let's see if I can indeed get this live. Uh-oh, folks. Lots of buffering. Let me know if you guys can. Okay, it seems like you can see me okay. I'm still attempting to pull up this debate. So bear with me, folks. I don't know if this is commercials or what's going on. I am on the foxnews.com website. This is just loading endlessly. Fox News nominates. Primary debates. Let's see. Fox News channel. Let us see. Hold on, folks. Forgive me, guys. Like, this is taking forever to load. I'm just attempting to load the debate, and then we could share screen. So it seems like the Fox News website, there's some trouble loading the debates, so we might have to refer to the David Pakman show, because every time I refresh and click the live stream on the Fox News website, I just get the endless circle of death. So, or my Wi-Fi is indeed bad. It does seem like we are buffering. So bear with me, folks. Let's see. Okay. What are you guys saying in the meanwhile? Nate is saying Vivek Ramaswamy for the win. I think he's definitely on the more substantive side, which I definitely appreciate for sure. A ham sandwich, because we were better off with ham and bread than any other dirty lying politician. Bring the AI overlords. Hey man, be careful what you wish for. You might actually get it. Okay, so I might have to attempt to find a different source. Let's see if I can actually get this to load. Because unfortunately from my end, every time I click the live stream button, there's just that 15-second commercial and then just nothing. Okay, so I do have the David Pakman live stream pulled up. So if by the time they start talking, if the Fox News stream isn't working, then we'll just refer to the David Pakman stream. Yeah, okay. The Fox News thing is just a commercial. All right. Yeah, so we'll go to the David Pakman stream. Let's see here. Oh, and he's playing commercial as well. Okay, sorry, folks. Oh my god, I need to start paying for YouTube Premium. Fuck these commercials, man. Jesus. You'd think if you were like a YouTuber, you'd get like YouTube Premium. I don't know. Maybe not. Whoa, what's going on here? Hold on. Oh my goodness. Hold on, folks. Did I just get randomly signed out? YouTube just signed me out randomly. Hold on. Why did that happen? I don't know. Huh. Okay, well. Well, let's just proceed, and hopefully there aren't any issues. All right. So I will be pulling up the David Pakman show, Fox News, live coverage of the GOP debate. And from the other end, I will be attempting to find another stream.
the questions, and then candidate. Get 1 minute to answer. If someone is singled out, you get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this. Very pleasant.
So tonight, these candidates
Let me know if you guys can hear this, by the way.
to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president at a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
They call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
But is it? More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Gas is high and food is high. A lot of people's out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 7-8% versus 2 to 3. It's just you can't afford the house anymore.
Inflation is ridiculous. It's killing us out here.
As we sit here tonight, the #1 song on the Billboard chart is called Rich Men North of Richmond.
Uh-oh, folks. The circle of death, you must forgive me. I tried to improve the quality of the stream here. I don't want to put it to HC. That way we don't have too many buffering problems. But I do want to make it somewhat visible so we can see their faces and not just pixels. In the meanwhile, please forgive me, folks. Like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. You guys can hear Charity Dunning saying you guys can indeed hear, so that's great. Thank you very much, Charity. Hope y'all are doing okay. Perhaps this was a mistake, attempting to switch to 480p. Okay, so in the meanwhile, let's see. While I try and get that fixed. Oh.
It is by a singer from Farmville, Virginia, named Oliver Anthony. His lyrics speak of alienation, of deep frustration with the state of government and of this country. Washington, D.C. is about 100 miles north of Richmond.
The song's toxic. Hey, I want to thank everybody coming in from the Brian Tyler Cohen stream.
The song is toxic. Yeah, there's this very popular song going around. I'm sure some of y'all might have seen it by now. Essentially, this country song talking about the woes of the people, which it's incredibly funny how things have switched, man. Because 10 years ago, this song would have been labeled the lefty song of the century, but given the current state of a lefty, hold on, let's refer back to the debate.
Inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
That fake politician laugh at the old practice. It's so fake. Who still buys that shit, guys? Like, it's not the 1970s anymore.
Then him.
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. And I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate, into 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward. Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly.
That was a great line.
You were governor, had the second lowest.
Yeah, Christie's sounding a little bit weak, guys. I'm not going to lie.
Downgraded 11 times.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, in an age where people can't afford food, let's cut their pensions. I don't know if that's like a winning line.
Their programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending. This was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%.
Real quick, every candidate so far attacking Biden, but that's not a justification for voting for you over the other 7 people on the stage.
Sending the money back to the states and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved 4.4 trillion, 4.1 trillion, 1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID.
A known Republican arguing on his behalf because he's in favor of tax cuts. Everyone on the stage is in favor of tax cuts. That's not going to differentiate yourself whatsoever. And given how I don't even know this guy's name and how he's behind in the polls, I mean, saying I'm for tax cuts on the stage of Republicans where everyone is for tax cuts, you're not really setting yourself apart.
Was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
hold on
that
one
was
second.
our administration, so I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President.
We'll be
Mr.
with you in a
Ramaswamy,
moment, please. Take a number.
Listening to all of this, why should voters choose you?
We'll talk to
over
Vivek
more
first.
experienced politicians on this stage. You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago.
How did that work out?
I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apoorva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time, we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
We try.
See, this is a great. Hold on, fuck. Okay, that's a great example of him differentiating himself. I mean, he's right. They're staying on a stage full of standard politicians. They're all the same. Like, why vote for him? And I think he's doing a good job of saying that at least on this stage he is the
people
outsider.
the truth.
Well spoken, great energy. I like that.
Didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt.
Here we go.
And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And
Now
our
we're
kids are
talking.
never going to forgive us for this. And so
Now
at
we're
the end of the
talking.
day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Vice President Pence.
Wow.
It was not bad.
54% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blame the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier, who's the most best prepared for this job? And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as vice president of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration. And then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said
Social Security is one of the most popular programs in the United States. I always find it funny when Republicans try to fight against it. Policy-wide aside, philosophically-wide aside, it's just like a losing battle. It's a very popular program.
on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
Yeah, see, like in an era where Trump's the leader of the Republican Party, saying I'm the most qualified, no one gives a shit about who is and isn't qualified. So, given that that's his kind of selling point, is what we've heard so far. It's boring.
By no longer paying them more to stay at home, reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. for me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on
Well,
it.
let me explain it to you.
Man, this guy's full of energy. I love to hear a Republican talking about peace and not starting
I
wars.
sometimes struggle with the reading
Look, I
comprehension.
was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed a Deficit Reduction Act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
What do you mean? You ran with Trump. Zero political experience. What a terrible
They're all
idea.
wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said go to Milwaukee and break a leg. So,
Right.
but I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
Governor Hutchinson, quickly.
Thank you, Grant. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you that I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor, and I made sure that we shrunk the size of government.
Wow.
We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually reduce the size, and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
What just happened?
typically not in favor of arbitrary policy.
The feed glitched.
Like 10%. Why 10%? Why not 8%?
Oh,
Why not
no.
11?
I guess I'll refresh. Refreshing is always a risk.
Okay, guys. So while refreshing is indeed a risk, as we've found out earlier in the live stream. Okay, so while we attempt to get the stream back, okay, hold on, we're back.
The future of our country to be the president of the United States that can lead with positive solutions and be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change amplified the cost of human error.
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you all.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change. How will you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
Should be interesting.
So we want to start on this with a show of hands. Do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Look, we're not school children. Let's have the debate. I mean, I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander?
What about the hands?
I don't think that's the way to do. So let me just say to Alexander this. First of all, One of the reasons our country's
Oh, wow.
decline is because of the way the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said, no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's
That's a
handled
lie.
disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You've got to be there. You've got to be present. You've got to be helping people who are doing this. And here's the deal.
Let's just answer the question.
So is that a yes or is that a yes? Is that a hand raise?
You do not.
I think it was a hand raise for him, and it's my hands are in my pockets.
No,
because
no,
the
I
climate
didn't
change
raise- I
agenda is
didn't
a
raise a
hoax. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
Wow.
The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate
Governor Haley, are you bought and paid for?
Hold
Hold on.
in the last century.
Listen.
I've had it- no,
Wait, hold on.
I've had enough. I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. Oh man! And the last
That's a
person
good
in one of
line.
these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on the stage tonight.
Oh,
Give me a
good
hug just
job.
like you did to Obama.
Same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
The
bear
same
hug, brother.
type of amateur.
Wow.
Hold on. Governor Haley, would you like to respond? Are you
So,
bought and
Brett,
paid
what I
for?
would
Do you
like to
sound like
say is the fact
ChatGPT?
that I think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Wow.
First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. Half of the batteries for electric vehicles are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international world
wouldn't say it
and
was
say,
directly
okay, India
Biden.
and
The
China,
entire
you've got to stop polluting.
Western
and that's when
community
we'll
agreed
start
to
to deal
that.
with
Senator
climate
Scott, are you
globalization.
bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid
Absolutely.
for?
Sorry.
Are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely not. I mean, here's what the American people deserve is a debate about the issues that affect their lives. Going back and forth, being childish is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country. Number one, wait a second. And number two, as a kid who grew up in a single parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was the American dream real for kids who are devastated by poverty, devastated by the challenges of life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China. If we create 10 million new jobs in my Made in America plan, we will have a better economy and a better environment. Let me tell you why I say that, Brett. America,
Do it quickly.
America has cut. I'm a Southern boy, I talk slow. So America, that was quick. America has cut our carbon footprint in half in the last 25 years. The places where they are continuing to increase, Africa, 950 million people. India, over 1 billion. China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage, devastating our own economy? Let's bring our jobs home.
We have a lot of different topics to get
Yeah, we do. We thank you all. Thank you, Senator Scott. So coming up next, the candidates will weigh in on what could be a defining issue in the 2024 campaign. The first Republican debate continues moments away.
So
Okay, so I want to comment on what's been said so far. So we had a very interesting moment there with Chris Christie going after Vivek Ramaswamy there. He got some good jabs and politically kind of, hitting him in the side where it hurts. Vivek Ramaswamy does seem to be the kind of up and comer, the kind of guy who's can really take it to who's the Florida governor? God damn it, his name escapes me at the moment. Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis kind of being in second place. And so that was kind of an interesting moment. Vivek does seem to be kind of full of energy, have his prepared lines. He didn't seem, as strong. His response wasn't as strong. He obviously didn't have much time. Everyone was speaking over each other, but that was kind of an interesting moment from Chris Christie as well. I think that Vivek Ramaswamy's statement on the climate change agenda being a hoax that strikes me as one of these pre-prepared lines meant to be turned into a clip that can be kind of popular after the stream. So I'm pretty sure he's going to garner a lot of attention based off that statement alone. That was kind of interesting to see. I also want to of note, what I think was interesting was the fact that Mike Pence, of all people, with the most ridiculous criticism, and who knows, maybe this criticism only falls flat to me because I'm a political nerd and I can understand the context, but for Mike Pence to criticize Vivek Ramaswamy for not being qualified enough for the presidency, for lack of experience, is the height of hilarity and hypocrisy. He ran with Trump, who had no previous political experience before the presidency. He ran many, many times. He was very famous for being a birther and a denier of Obama's birth certificate. That was kind of one of Trump's major political things way, way back in the day. And so for Mike Pence to criticize Vivek for not having experience, meanwhile, he ran alongside the guy with absolutely no political experience, is number one, an ineffective argument. Number two, extremely hypocritical. So I don't know if it's just me that picks up on that. Probably, most people aren't kind of political nerds, but I found his arguments uninspiring, ineffective, and his whole, I think, value proposition, Mike Pence, is that, hey, I'm the guy with experience, but I don't think anyone cares about that right now. If people cared about experience, I was going to say they wouldn't vote for Trump, but I mean, hell, he was president for 4 years and now he does have experience. But, when Trump first ran, he had no political experience, and that wasn't at all an issue for the base. The base couldn't have given less of a shit. In fact, one of the reasons why he did so well was because he was an outsider, was because he wasn't, one of these career politicians. That is a huge plus, not only in the previous political environment, but in today's political environment. I think it's a huge plus. If you look at why Trump won, he was anti-establishment. If you look at why Joe Biden is as hated to the extent he is, both on the left and the right, is because he's the epitome of the establishment. And so for Mike Pence to criticize Vivek for being not the establishment is a massive benefit, in my opinion. And so from what I've seen, I think Vivek so far is probably benefiting from this debate. He seems to be getting a lot of airtime, seems to have a lot of energy. The only time I think he performed poorly was with kind of that Pence that Chris Christie gave him, and also that position he has on the climate change. On its face is a controversial statement to make. I'm sure in kind of a long format that Vivek likes to do, he could parse that out and explain that a little bit better and explain the nuance. But I think it's likely to be kind of clipped out after this debate and be kind of a talking point moving forward. So in terms of the people on the side, I mean, did they even speak? I thought that wasn't interesting at all. I think the only people making kind of an interesting point so far or kind of really in there were Pence, DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and a little bit Chris Christie, just because he got those great jabs in. But also, I want to comment on the utter ridiculousness of these no-name Republican politicians talking about vote for me because I want to cut your taxes. Everyone on that goddamn stage wants to cut your taxes, all right? Trump wants to cut your taxes. So, imagine if you're getting 1% in the polls and you're like, guys, this is how I'm going to get my name on there, and this is how I'm going to distinguish myself. Guess what? I'm for cutting your taxes. That's the most boring, obvious thing. Everyone there that's a given. That's the default. It's like saying, vote for me because I breathe. Well, yeah, no shit. Everyone on that stage is for cutting taxes. And so for them to be like, oh, vote for me because I cut taxes and I want to cut your taxes, that does not differentiate you at all. And in a field where Trump is leading, in a field where DeSantis is in second place, in a field where Vivek Swamy is a third place contender trying to be the second place, to distinguish yourself by saying I'm in favor of cutting your taxes, it's just a complete and utter waste of breath, because that's a given. Every single Republican is in favor of cutting your taxes. That's like what it is to be a Republican. So to like waste precious airtime in a debate stage like this to say the most obvious no-brainer thing and to not distinguish yourself, not differentiate yourself, I think was ridiculous. So, those are my thoughts so far. I don't know what you guys are saying. Crypto Bendu is saying, why does it sound like a daytime gotcha show? Because it is, guys. Like these debates, I mean, they're hardly debates. It's really entertainment. Like, you can't delve into the nuances of policy detail in a 2-minute, not even like a 30-second, 45-second segment where you have 45, 30 seconds to speak at a time. Hold on.
Wants me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children, so I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal, because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all agree that we should encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception should be available? And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is, and humanize the situation and stop demonizing the situation.
Brett, Governor, hold on. You're not mentioned, Vice President Pence. Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win.
He's bobbling.
But second of all, look, you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb, and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do.
Folks, can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me okay. Seems to be some buffering. In the meanwhile, let me try and pull up the screen. I can see if you guys can actually hear me. Like and subscribe, folks, if you enjoy this kind of thing. It seems like the stream. Can you guys hear me? Let me know. Yeah, Michael saying you can hear me. Okay, perfect. Well, folks, we're buffering, unfortunately. I just want to comment on what we've seen so far with Ron DeSantis. Guys, I hate, and it's not just me. It's part of the reason why Trump won. There, especially in the U.S. I think Canada is kind of stuck 20 years in the past in terms of the culture of political debate climate and how politicians speak and how they look. It's very based off kind of 1970s newscaster, prim and proper speak, and I have my pre-prepared 45 seconds. It's meant to directly address these particular, categories of demographics that I would like to gain support from, and then fake smile at the end. And that kind of politics died in the Trump era. You're not going to win against Trump being this fake politician. You see at the end of all these, Ron DeSantis prepared statements, you see that little fake politician smile. You think he wants to smile in that moment? No, it's this fake rehearsed bullshit. All these politicians, they'll practice the smile in the mirror behind the scenes. Like they'll talk to their lobbyists and their political consultants and say, "Oh, this poll showed that you're not smiling enough. You need to smile more." It's disgusting. It's so fake. That kind of politics is stuck in the 1970s. This newscaster culture from the 1970s. I don't think nowadays you need to be this kind of fake automaton that has a fake smile at the end of every pre-prepared statement, in order to kind of gain support and look favorable. I mean, you look at Trump. Trump was, very, very controversial, very, very, non-traditional, and he's wiping the field, tons and tons of support. I mean, he's a fervent religious base of supporters, and it's because he's real. It's because he's himself. It's because he's genuine. It's because he's not one of these traditional politicians. And so whenever I see that, I cannot help but recoil and flinch.
On this issue is wrong to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
Disgusting lies.
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different. But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head. Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you.
Dear God.
And see, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life. And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed? A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American people, but it's going to take unapologetic leadership that stands on principle and expresses compassion for women in crisis pregnancies.
Sorry for interrupting. It must be said, something like 93% of abortions happen before that point anyway. The 7% that happen later are almost all extremely difficult, complicated situations. This entire conversation is farcical.
100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation to ban abortion after a baby is capable of experiencing pain. It's just going to take leadership.
Hold on.
70% of the Senate does not. You have to be honest with the American people.
A 15-week
All right, let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. So
let's let him speak.
But the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country.
It's actually the right take.
And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause and to return it back to the states. And then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives. They're stepping into people's businesses. over and over. If we say that the Fed should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is return to the states. This is where it should
But
be.
Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. Time out. You signed a 6-week ban. Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota, and vice versa. That's
Governor
why we have 50
Asa
states.
Hutchinson,
That's why
right
we have
here.
50 states.
This is too important of an issue that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress. So there is authority. And that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term. So they have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level as well. Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation. I signed 30 pro-life pieces of legislation while I was governor. And every state can determine a different outcome here. And it is the most important issue for women and for the unborn child and for our country that we get this right. It's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance maternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are important for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important. Senator, I'll let you weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical. It is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for, at the minimum, a 15-week limit. I'm 100% pro-life conservative. I have 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve. We can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that issue with a 15-week limit at a minimum.
Brett, I think we're all pro-life, but what I would love is for someone to ask Biden and Kamala Harris, are they for 38 weeks? Are they for 39 weeks? Are they for 40 weeks? Because that's what the media needs to be asking.
All right, another issue is America and the crime crisis, the homelessness crisis. American cities are in decline. People are moving out as homelessness, drugs, crime move in. There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising, actually.
Murders in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, all up 30% between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history. Vice President Pence, a lot of this began in the COVID era. How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns? And is your administration in part to blame for how we got here?
Well, I think what's in part to blame is the Democrats been talking about defunding the police for the last 5 years.
No one's really.
And we ought to be
talking about it.
funding law enforcement, particularly in our major cities, at unprecedented levels.
Liar.
I mean, it's extraordinary to think about the violence that's claiming innocent lives literally every week in every major city in this country.
I mean, it's funny how the Republicans constantly talk about tax cuts, arbitrary tax cuts, but then they're in favor of adding funding to police, adding funding for different sorts of services. It's almost like the government has some role to play in society. I just think it's a bit funny because it's a bit of a contradictory position.
The states marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. When I'm president of the United States, we're actually going to cut taxes further. We're going to extend those tax cuts, and we're going to close the federal Department of Education, block grant all that funding back to the states. With a growing economy and educational choice and law enforcement, we will bring our cities back.
Governor Christie, another issue. This weekend here in Milwaukee, reports say there were 30 shootings, and a number of them including kids. Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy access to guns. They also blame Republicans for blocking gun control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the only person, along with Governor Hutchinson, up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America in a state where there is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals. So what a President Christie would do is appoint an attorney general who would instruct each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up what's going on all across this country in these individual cities. Secondly, what we need to make sure that each and every one of these criminals understand is that the laws apply to everybody. And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for a gun permit, and then is facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges. We're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody. In a Christie administration, he would go to jail for 10 years.
What about a President Ramaswamy? What does a President Ramaswamy do about guns?
So the reality is we have crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? More cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country. Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel.
That's part of it.
It's a deeper issue. I think faith-based approaches can play a role here too.
Religion.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime.
Can I
across
speak
this
on behalf
country.
of
Governor
the American
DeSantis,
people
really
here?
quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis, Vivek. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
Well, Mike, I think the difference is you might have, some others like you may have on the stage, it's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal, sort of cold cultural civil
You
war.
are
And we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that in
people
order
with
to
the
actually
failed
win.
government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So, let me just
Governor
finish
DeSantis,
addressing
I
that
wanna weigh
slogan
in
because I don't
here.
know what that slogan
Brett,
means.
Mark,
We
I
need to
want you
shut
to
down
weigh
the
in, Governor
administrative
DeSantis.
state. And Mark,
Crime-
that's actually how we translate.
Crime has been on the rise in Florida, Governor DeSantis. How do you stop crime?
Well, actually, crime's at a 50-year low
Not
in
in-
Florida.
not in Miami.
We're happy with that. Well, the statewide, it's a 50-year low. And so here's the thing. These hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone. And as president, we are going to go after all of these people because they are hurting the quality of life and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country. And it will stop when I get into office.
Okay, one more here before the break, Governor Bergen.
Brett and Martha, I just thought it was interesting. You asked your question about the problems we're having in big cities. Nobody ever asked the question of what about the crime wave in small towns? Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps them get the crop off. There's accountability, there's transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is somebody in the White House that understands small town values, because that's our road back to get this country on track again.
Governor Hutchinson.
Was former head of the DEA, I understand the drug crisis in America. And right now, whenever you look at the challenges in our inner city, there's three simple words that would be helpful. One, enforce the law when it comes to crime. Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we have the tools that are needed for addiction counseling. That's what we expanded in Arkansas as well. Whenever you look at the underlying challenge of America, though, no one likes to see an America with smash and grab in our inner cities. As president of the United States, that will stop. It starts at the top with the respect for our justice system that a former president who's under indictment has undermined by attacking judges, by attacking prosecutors, by attacking the system and saying he's aggrieved. And so we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
Brett, thank you. Hold on.
Take a break. So speaking of that, right now you are looking live at Fulton County Jail, where former President Donald Trump will be processed tomorrow. So next, the candidates will have an opportunity to talk about the coming trials of Donald Trump.
Wow.
All right. So
Okay, yeah, man. So that's a really interesting aspect of this whole situation, which is, we're missing the front runner of the entire Republican debate, which is the former President Donald Trump. He's completely absent from this. It's going to be extremely interesting to see whether or not Trump really kind of suffers from his lack of appearance. One of the reasons why he did so well last time and got garnered so much popularity was because of his, great performances, on the debate stage during the 2016 election cycle. And so for him to kind of be absent now, he's essentially missing out on just a massive degree of free marketing. And that, that's one reason why, he did so well last time, is because he got so much free coverage. I mean, he was so controversial. Every day, Trump was setting the narrative, setting the news story. It was just 24/7, constantly Trump. He got so much free advertising. And so for him to kind of be absent from the debate stage, I think is allowing some of these other people to perhaps have their moment in the light. And so it'll be interesting to see in kind of post-debate polling to what extent or another, perhaps what's Ron DeSantis? Perhaps Ron DeSantis reverses his downtrend from, he's currently in second place. He has been downtrending quite a lot in terms of support. Maybe he reverses that. I'm not sure I've seen anything that kind of stands out from Ron DeSantis' point of view. He seems like the very typical middle of the road, standard Republican politician. I haven't seen anything kind of interesting, exciting out of him. I haven't seen kind of any interesting energy coming out of Ron DeSantis. If you ask me who on this debate stage, regardless of opinion or political stance or whether you agree with him or not, just in terms of energy, who seems like they have energy? And it's, in my opinion, it's clear. It's Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he, from what I've seen so far, is looking to benefit from this showing. Again, Ron DeSantis is just being completely uninspiring. And I don't think when you're in second place, losing support day after day after day, an uninspiring performance is really beneficial. Now, perhaps it's a wash. Perhaps it's ultimately beneficial because, again, the front runner, Trump, is not on the stage. And so maybe a lackluster performance is enough to gain support, gain popularity, gain favorability, simply because, okay, sure, you're not like showing out, but you're not doing horrible either. You know, as long as he's just kind of maintaining, but getting more eyeballs and getting more attention all the time, you know, maybe that's enough to reverse the downtrend. But again, guys, like the gap is so large in terms of support. Like if we go back over here, I mean, you're looking at basically 52% support for Trump, and what is this, like 18% support, 15% support for DeSantis. I mean, this is a giant gap, guys. Like, you don't close this gap by being like a standard okay politician delivering, you know, the traditional talking points of tax cuts, abortion, pro cops, pro military spending. Like if you just deliver that standard message competently, sure, you might maintain, you might gain a couple points here or there, but I'm not seeing anything from DeSantis to considerably close this massive gap that Trump has. And maybe, you know, Trump being out of the limelight, maybe Trump not getting so much of that free press might benefit him and might be what it takes for him to take home the win. But you know, if I was on the DeSantis team, I would be like, hey man, you gotta be throwing haymakers. You got to do something to set the narrative. You got to do something to, you know, set the next news cycle, because just delivering standard Republican politician talking points competently is not enough to close this massive, like 35, like this massive gap that exists, right? Like you know, DeSantis is downtrending, Ramaswamy is uptrending. I would personally love it if it was a Ramaswamy on the Republican ticket, JFK on the Democratic ticket, if only for the reason that I think that would be a very interesting substantive debate that we would see. I believe those are on both sides of the aisle, probably some of the most substantive politicians that are currently running. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll probably get Trump Biden. Because, you know, it just in terms of, you know, the feeling sentiment, but also the polling reflects that. I mean, again, look, on the Trump, on the Republican side, the gap is pretty much pretty comparable to the Democratic side. I mean, look, like, you know, on the Democratic side, there's no real serious, you know, competitors to Biden aside from Kennedy, and Kennedy, unfortunately, is not. You know, he's like barely maintaining in the short term. He's even going down quite a little bit. So, you know, I'm not sure what it takes for Kennedy to flip Biden. I don't see a clear path for him being able to flip Biden, although I would personally prefer that. I would personally prefer. But, you know, I don't think that's going to happen. You know, again, for me, guys, also, you know, my opinions aren't set in stone. Like I mentioned, I've been kind of a casual observer of politics in the recent past. And so because I'm not as in the weeds as I once was as a young man, of course, I need to keep an open mind to new evidence and, you know, new good arguments. If I hear an argument, a good argument, whether on the left side or the right side of the political spectrum, you know, if someone has a well-reasoned, well-rationed out, evidence-based, convincing opinion, you know, I don't care if it comes from the right or the left. You know, I believe in truth and honesty, whether it just so happens to be on the left or the right, whatever in the moment happens to be the right thing. I believe that's what ought to be done, based off kind of, you know, rationed out argument, evidence-based, you know, policy decision making and that kind of thing. So, you know, we'll see how things kind of, if the gap continues to close after post this debate. Okay, let's see. Are we back?
And, you know, this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you raised your hand supporting.
No, I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's all, and Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now.
Wow.
But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor.
Let me tell
No, I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor.
You make me laugh because
Go
you
both
sit
ways, brother.
here in an answer. You sit here in an answer.
Oh my God. They're eating him alive. He can't even speak.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor
Wow.
Christie.
Hold on.
They're booting him off.
Well, so listen, the more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
No, it is very true.
That is not
It's
true.
very true. I read it,
Because
and I
there's a
know.
difference
Look,
between bad behavior and illegal
by the way,
behavior, Chris, and you as a
by the way,
prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot
There's
better.
a difference between bad behavior.
And I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We've stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
Get your MSNBC contributor.
he said,
Because these are
he said,
politicized indictments, and we have to call out the truth.
Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political pressure.
We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have another question. I have another question. Hold on, you will. All right. So President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight. He has faced hecklers on the campaign trail over his actions on January the 6th.
Here we go.
On that day, the vice president moved forward with the certification of the election. So do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
Absolutely. He did the right thing. Number one. Number two, we should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland. Second thing I'll do, fire Christopher Wray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blindfold. Without that, no one has confidence in our justice system. 17% of Republicans have confidence in our Department of Justice. Here's why. We keep seeing not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against parents who show up at school board meetings. They're called, under this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists.
Firing Christopher Wray,
that's not
you have to shut down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Let me finish my comments.
Yes.
Not only that, in addition to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority, not just against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
We have an important
But Governor
question still
DeSantis,
to
do you
answer.
believe that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do. We need to end the weaponization of these federal agents.
But that's not
And I
the
will do
question.
that.
That's not the question.
I know, but here's the thing.
answer the
This
question?
election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025 when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other issues, but we've got to focus on your future. We've got to focus on reversing the decline of our country. I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus on the mission above all else. You can't get distracted. So Republicans, we've got to look forward And we've got to make sure that we're bringing the message that can win in November
Did not
2024.
answer the question. Did not answer the question.
Vice President Pence,
The mission of the President
what
of
do
the
you think,
United
Vice
States
President?
is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day. There's no more important issue. So answer the question.
I've answered this before.
So yes.
Why are we? Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him. But here's the thing: is this what we're going to be focusing on
I'm relieved.
going forward? The rehashing of this? I'll tell you,
Governor
the
DeSantis,
Democrats would love that,
we
and they
spent-
will win if we
Governor
let them get away
DeSantis,
with it. I'm not letting Biden hang out in the basement this time. We're going to run him ragged around this country, and we're going to hold him accountable.
These people are dangerously insane.
Former President Trump is beating you by 30, 40 points in many polls. So it is a factor in the GOP primary. Governor Hutchinson, you did not raise your hand.
I did not raise my hand because there's an important issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules and under the Constitution. And so obviously I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony or who is disqualified under our Constitution, and that's consistent with RNC rules. And I hope everybody would agree with me.
We're going to get to a lot more time. We're going to move on. No, we're going to.
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on that?
Okay, I'd like to answer.
You have already been on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question
Go
you
ahead.
asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution, and he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay. Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree? Do you agree that Vice President Pence did the right thing that day or not?
I do think that Vice President Pence did the right thing. And I do think that we need to give him credit for that. But what I will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide. But what they will tell you is that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have to look at the fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden. And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most disliked politician in America. We can't win a general election that way.
Governor Berger, an opportunity.
Happy to answer the question. Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. But I want to say, you started off the top of this hour saying we're going to talk about China, Ukraine, education.
We are.
China is the number one threat to our country. And every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just you know who loves it? Biden loves it, but China loves it when we're talking about the past.
Okay, as promised, we were going to spend a few questions on it, let people say what they wanted to say. And now, indeed, we are moving on to the subject.
The U.S. has committed nearly 77.
Can I speak on this issue? I was
You
kind of
did
involved.
you answered on this.
You did
You did
say
answer.
something.
Yeah.
We thought you were done, but you
No, I
please.
wasn't done.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward and turn the page forward. That's exactly right.
Will be convicted of these crimes.
You should be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this
That's
corrupt.
the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional
I've actually-
politician. That's the
I've
difference. You can
actually,
answer a question.
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So look, if I'm president of the United States, we'll give fair consideration to any pardon request. But if I may, it's not about looking back at January 2021. It's about January 20th, 2017. I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand. And I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it ended with a prayer, so help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American people, but I also made it to my Heavenly Father.
Oh, boy.
Every day for 4 years, I sought to keep that oath. And everyone on this stage needs to make it clear whether or not they'll do the same if they earn this job and the confidence of the American people. Now, look, I've made it clear. I had hoped that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal proceedings. I would rather they have been resolved by the American people and the American people alone. But no one's above the law, and President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to, and we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution.
Right.
And I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I had no right to overturn the election, and Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Wow. Now we are moving on to other issues. The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy is doing a good job of setting himself apart.
You would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right now, they're not doing
you
that.
would not support
and I think we need
more
to do, and I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further in.
It's actually not clear that it's legal to use the military in that sort of law enforcement way. It's actually legally quite controversial.
We have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first. Secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
All right, we heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right, look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world. We will be next.
Governor Haley right now.
Hold on. You were
I have a
mentioned.
question
You were
for
mentioned.
Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border. And frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just
So our
briefly
troops
address
aren't gonna have
Pence.
to make that
Vice
fight.
President Pence. I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
The real
USSR?
threat. You talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address right now
have
is
any
the
idea what
I let
Vladimir Putin's aims
you
are?
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir
30
Putin has
seconds.
been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Vice
Now, if
President
you think
Pence,
I'm sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer, and the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30
Briefly
seconds.
respond. The real threat we face today is communist China. And we are driving Russia further into China's arms. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it. And I am the only non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear. Mr. Vice President,
is to give Russia
Mr. Vice
everything
President.
they've got.
Mr. Vice President.
Give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President.
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
And
President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay, here we go.
I think we need to
When-
establish some ground rules
When
here,
we
folks.
hear this bell,
Yes.
that means your time's done. So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here.
This is a bonkers debate. It's just absurd.
You were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
We
policy.
gave you more
Protect
than
this
the 30
homeland.
seconds in the revive. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here.
Can
So
anyone talk?
Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. Right. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the US. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American.
She's right. She's right.
First of all,
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis, Governor
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
You know, I'm
But
not on
the
the
fact
boards
of the
of
matter,
Lockheed and Raytheon, and you know,
Boeing
you
came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week,
You want
Nikki.
to go and defund Israel? You want to
Okay,
give
let me
Taiwan
address
to
that. I'm
China?
glad you brought that up.
Go and give
I'm going to
Ukraine
address
Russia?
each of those right now. This is
She's on fire.
of a professional politician. There we have
Under
it.
your watch,
So the
you make
reality is-
America less safe. You have no
Let me-
foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The
It
foreign
shows.
policy experience that you all have shows
Folks,
in
Nikki
the
Haley's on
war that's
fire.
happening too. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is
There's never been a better time to get away with a great deal on the Hyundai you've always wanted.
So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an Iron Dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles
you
me
wanna cut the
is,
aid
I want to
off.
learn
And
from
let me
those and
tell
apply
you,
those to protect
it's
our
not
homeland,
that
Nikki.
Israel
That is
needs
the answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay,
They
Governor
are the
DeSantis,
problem that
Governor
defends
DeSantis, you were mentioned in the territorial dispute. Not only
No, it's not a
So,
territorial
as
dispute
President of
either.
the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people
We can
who
do
are
both
being
at the
killed because,
same
well, we're
time.
not handling
And we
both.
can do
And so
both
I am
at
going
the
to
same
declare
time.
it a national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
we're actually going to move on to China. We're going to talk about China.
Okay.
Governor Burgum, China has the biggest navy in the world, the biggest army in the world. Now they have warships off the coast of Alaska. They are threatening Taiwan. In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's believed. The U.S. just arrested 2 sailors accused of spying for China within our military. So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Burgum?
Well, this is the number one issue we're facing. And of course, we haven't been talking about it, and we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country. So they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength is that you actually have strength. You actually have deterrence. And what we have in what we've got going on in Ukraine is an example of when deterrence fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the fact that he greenlighted Putin moving into Ukraine, and then now they see weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move. And we have to be strong, and we have to be strong both in Ukraine, and we can solve the southern border. Absolutely, we can do that, because guess what? There's only 19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration wanted to put 87,000 people in the IRS as opposed to giving the money in this fort we need to our own Border Patrol.
Okay. Senator Scott, on China, that same question.
Can I speak about China?
Let's fire the 87,000 IRS agents and hire or double the number of.
Remember, most of those 87,000 haven't even been hired yet. It's a 10-year plan to replace retiring agents. This is so bonkers. It's just meaningless.
National security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl. Plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list have been caught at our border? How many have not been caught at our southern border? If we just spend 10 billion.
Hey, by the way, some people are telling me viral social media sensation Curtis Newbill is telling me to shut up in my stream. I don't know who the hell you are, dude, but I'll talk if I want to. By the way, you're probably a perfectly nice guy. Nice to meet you if you're actually here. I'm just kidding around. You sound like a really nice guy.
The priority of this government, and as the next president of the United States, I will make that border wall complete.
There are many more questions on China. I do want to ask about.
I want to say I couldn't agree more. It's not just the 70,000 for fentanyl. We've lost 200,000 people to overdoses since Biden took office. That's 300 people a day. We're taking mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing. We've got North Dakota troops down there flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson,
with Mexico,
Vice President Pence,
policy.
images from earlier this month.
We secured the
Vice President Pence, it really doesn't help. I'm asking a question. Earlier this month, images show.
Uh-oh. I moved something. Forgive me, folks. Oh, no. Oh, no. So far, I just want to know that I feel like
suspected cartel members crossing into Texas.
We're back. Folks, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in this live stream with me. This is the first time I've done kind of non-crypto stuff. So I just want to thank you guys who are here for tuning in with me, watching this with me, being a bit of a political nerd with me. I will be covering the debates as time goes on, when time permits. So I might not have the time to cover every single debate, but when I have time, I will be doing so both on the Republican side, Democratic side, the primaries, the general, and probably once the Canadian elections kick off as well. Look, guys, while this is loading, I did want to bring up the fact that I think the people who, in my opinion, are standing out are so far seem to be kind of Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Chris Christie has had some kind of great jabs so far and kind of setting himself apart to be kind of the anti-Trump Republican candidate. Nikki Haley had some interesting moments as well. I still think kind of Ramaswamy seems to be getting a lot of not just airtime, but will probably benefit from this as well. Ron DeSantis, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but Ron DeSantis seems to have a poor performance. He seems uninspiring. He seems kind of to be fidgeting around. Like he doesn't seem to be have quite the presence of a Vivek or hell, I'd say even Chris Christie. I think he's giving these, he's just delivering these standard Republican talking points competently, but rather uninspiringly. And when you have that massive difference in the polling between Trump and DeSantis, and you're following, you're losing your lead day after day, week after week, a competently delivered standard Republican talking point is not what it takes to reverse this trend, let alone beat Trump. So, I don't see a lot of inspiring messaging. I mean, even Ron DeSantis was talking about the same talking point. He delivered the same talking point that Vivek did, talking about how we should deploy our soldiers on the southern border. Now that should be our kind of spending priority, except he delivered that point more uninspiringly than Vivek did, and after he did, which just made it seem like he was just doing a poor job of copying and pasting, a talking point that seemed to get some cheers. And so, so far in terms of performance, I'm trying to not so much delve into the nuance of personal opinion and policy, but just in terms of I'm commenting. I'm trying to focus my commentary more so just on the performance, on the kind of horse race aspect of this whole situation. Now, should I attempt to refresh the dreaded refresh? All right, folks. So let me see if we can get the stream back. Unfortunately, we do seem to be buffering, guys. By the way, let me know. Is this what doing your? If you can indeed hear me, by the way, because again, it does seem like we're buffering. Does seem like we're having a bit of lag. So if you guys can let me know in the comments that you can indeed hear me, that would be quite fantastic. So I'm refreshing the stream on the other end, seeing if we can get the stream back. If we can, I'll be sure to tune in. All right, I think we have the stream back. Hold on. Folks, let me know if you can hear me in the comments. Okay, no, we don't have the stream back. It's still loading. It's all right, though. It seems like they've gone to commercial, which is interesting. Vivek is, Ramaswamy, he definitely seems to have some of the most controversial talking points, controversial positions. So simply in terms of performance, I think he's doing a good job of setting himself apart, which is what he needs to do. Like, regardless of whether you agree on his political opinions, his political takes, whether they're good or bad policy, leaving that aside, in my opinion, his job right now is to make himself different. How do you make yourself different? Because, folks, you're running against Trump, all right? You are not going to beat Trump being some standard Republican talking figure who just competently delivers standard Republican talking points. You're not going to beat Trump. You're not even going to get close to beating Trump being that standard politician. And so in terms of looking at the field and saying, okay, who has a chance here? I mean, Ron DeSantis, the governor, former governor of Florida, seems to be in second place, but he's losing a lot of support. He doesn't seem to have a good performance. Who's been surging recently is Vivek. He seems to be giving a good performance, regardless of opinion, regardless on whether or not you agree with him politically, just in terms of the performance aspect, just in terms of how he's likely to be received. I think he's setting a name for himself. I think he's differentiating himself. I think he's saying controversial things, which will get into the news cycle and get him talking, and get people talking about him after, which is what he wants. Like, regardless, like he, in my opinion, if I were, in his position, he should just be out here saying the most ridiculous, controversial thing he could possibly say, because that gets him more attention and that differentiates him from the rest of the crowd. When you're in a field of all Republicans and you say, hey, I'm for tax cuts. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, everyone on that stage is for tax cuts. So when you have 1 minute to speak and you take up 30, 45 seconds of your time saying I'm for tax cuts and I'm for the military, well, everyone on that stage is. That doesn't differentiate you whatsoever. And so with Ramaswamy coming out here and saying these controversial things, I think that's going to be in the news cycle after this debate. I think it's going to give him more attention. I think that's going to differentiate himself further. And I think he probably continues to surge in the polls. Now, whether he can make up that gap to Ron DeSantis, whether he can even surpass Ron DeSantis and get even close to Trump, that's still a massive open question. I don't think Vivek beats Trump unless Trump just absolutely gets thrown in the slammer, unless he just completely loses it, has some stroke, isn't able to talk. Like, unless Trump stops being him and stops being able to perform on the level that he has in the past, I think Trump probably wins the nomination. He's so far ahead, and he's garnered the support of the Republican base so well that I think it's going to be a moment. Excuse me. I think it's going to be terribly, terribly difficult to beat Trump. And in terms of a figure that the establishment can get behind, I mean, Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis. I could see kind of the Republican establishment trying to coalesce behind Ron DeSantis, but I just don't see an inspiring performance from Ron DeSantis. All I see is standard Republican talking points delivered competently. And I keep repeating the same thing, but it's a very true thing to be said. Like, Ron DeSantis is in second place, but he's been losing a lot of support. And I don't imagine, that maybe he stabilizes, maybe he maintains, given the added exposure of these debates. But I don't see this performance leading to a surge. Of course, it may very well, simply because of the exposure of the debate stage. But this was not some hit it out of the ballpark performance from DeSantis so far. I think Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Vivek Ramaswamy have been the only ones so far with kind of some interesting energy behind them. Pence, again, I think has been, in terms of performance, somewhat competent so far, but given his position, you being the former vice president running against the former president, who Pence is not going to win, guys. There's no way that Pence wins. And so for him to kind of just be the standard politician that he is, like I don't see him winning. I don't think Pence is too much of a serious contender, in my opinion. We'll see. So, folks, it seems like the debate is still on commercials here. It's still buffering. My goodness, Jesus. I'm not sure if it's my fault here, folks. It might be partially my fault because I do seem to be buffering in terms of the video. But yeah, the stream continues to buffer. It is thankfully still on commercials. Let me see if lowering it from 480p to 360 helps out a little bit here. In the meanwhile, let's see if there's any kind of recent polling. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any kind of new polling results until tomorrow post debate. Davis, I see you're active in the chat. Thanks for being here, my good sir. Man, it just keeps loading and loading forever. All right. Let me see if I can, I don't know, maybe close some tabs, see if this I'm going to close some tabs. See if this helps. Oh, wait, hold on. We might be getting it back. Okay, I think we're back, folks. Hold on.
You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact that education differs by state. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so. But the idea that every school district, state, and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. When I was building a company from scratch, with small town kids, and we went, grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. The night before I find out the student finds out, I'm going to go to every class with them. I don't sit and lecture school districts how to do it. I go and see the experience. And there's a lot of things that have to change. But what needs to change in education is it's innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education. You should see what the people are doing when you cut loose the red tape, get the burden off their back. They care. Teachers in this country, the vast majority of them care about those kids. They're working in low-paying jobs, and they're fighting for those kids and their families.
Governor Haley, you said that this was the women's issue of our time.
First, I'll tell you, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did. And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools, but we've got to get these kids reading. If a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this country. We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again. When we do that and we allow that innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
We're going to start the lightning round, and the first question is going to go to you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round of questions, 30-second answers, please. President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical test in order to serve Vice President Pence?
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental. But 30 seconds. No, the American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old. And we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there.
That's right.
We need a president who knows how Congress works, how the White House works, how states work. And on this education issue, Martha, I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the Federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America. And we'll give school choice to every family in America when I'm in the White House.
This is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Going to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic working class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution. We're going to do it in 2024.
Same question to you, Governor.
In a presidential election until 20.
I will answer that.
You ran alongside Trump, who had no experience. What a fucking.
Control of this.
Everybody's going to get a chance to get
Listen,
control
we're getting
of this
control of the debate. This is a lightning round, not rolling thunder. Governor Hutchinson, you have 30 seconds on the same question.
On education, first of all, look at Arkansas. We have to compete with China. I built computer science education. We led the nation in computer science education, going from 1,100 students to 23,000 students taking it. This is how you compete with China. As President of the United States, I will make sure we go from 51% of our schools offering computer science to every school in rural areas and urban areas offering computer science for the benefit of our kids, and we can compete with China in terms of technology.
Thank you, sir. This is going to go to this is coming to you. We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here. So, Senator Scott, faith is on decline in this country. You talked about it a little bit before tonight. So, is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on God's green earth. I'm a big believer in Ephesians 3:20 that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Our responsibility should be to model the behavior we want others to follow. On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing in the doorhouse of our kids, locking them into failing schools and locking them out of the greatest future they could have.
As president, Governor DeSantis, would you support some mandatory military service for all Americans?
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that volunteered to serve, inspired by September 11th, and I deployed to Iraq alongside U.S. Navy SEALs in places like Fallujah, Ramadi. And it's something that I think has taught me, you know, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there, and it's about focusing on the mission above all else. And guys come together, and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the president of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus will be on your future and reversing this country's decline.
Okay, now for something a little out of this world, and this is for you, Governor Christie. Do you believe that the recent spike in UFO encounters?
I get the UFO question?
Yeah, you do.
Come on,
There
man.
you go. No, but okay, we've been hearing a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this a lot more seriously. And we're hearing that, you know, there are things going on that people aren't aware of. So, if you were president, Governor Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible
Look,
encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but we're not that different. Look, of course, the job of the President of the United States is to level with the American people about everything. The job of the President of the United States is to stand for truth. The job of the President of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren. And so whether it was UFOs or this problem of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers unions in New Jersey and drove them down to an all-time low popularity rating because they were putting themselves before our kids. That is the biggest threat to our country, not UFOs.
Okay. Well, coming up, we've got closing arguments. Plus, right after the debate, Hannity is live from the spin room right here in the Fiserv Forum with reaction from all the candidates. As soon as they step off the stage, we'll be back after this.
All right. So this is indeed the last break. Then we will hear closing arguments. Listen, guys, I'm not impressed with this. I just, and I.
Okay, so thank you, David Pakman, for allowing me to hijack your stream. I think Davis is saying, Brandon, are you going to hijack this guy's stream every debate? Well, hell, man, he was the one with the working stream. Now, unfortunately, my connection has been somewhat shoddy this whole time, and so once I found a working stream, I didn't want to keep messing with it, opening up new tabs, because I have a bunch of tabs open every time I search something up. We start buffering. So I found a good stream that worked. I don't want to mess with it any further. So if David Pakman is the only one with a usable stream moving forward, then hey, I hope he allows me to definitely continue hijacking his stream. So in terms of performance, we heard from David Pakman recently, who is kind of a lefty. He's a left-wing political commentator. He has a very popular YouTube show. Who he's definitely on kind of the left-wing progressive side of things. For those of you who aren't familiar with David Pakman, I am familiar with David Pakman. Also, pretty interestingly, something that's kind of interesting to know of David Pakman. Again, folks, this is the stream we're watching of the debate is from the David Pakman show. Like I mentioned, he is a lefty. He is on the progressive side of things, but he is thankfully not completely unthinking when it comes to cryptocurrency. I've actually heard him say that he's into Bitcoin, he's into Ethereum, which is actually a very interesting note, because in lefty political circles, it's so unfortunate that the left has become anti-crypto in many respects. There's a lot of these political commentary shows on the left that very unfortunately have evolved to become more and more anti-crypto. And so David Pakman is thankfully one of these very popular, well-known political commentators on the left, on the kind of just internet side of things. And he is kind of pro some crypto, at least, Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is kind of good to see, because there are some other popular shows. I'll name them. I don't know why, I shouldn't. I don't see a reason why I shouldn't, rather. The Majority Report, the Young Turks. And it's crazy because, like I mentioned earlier, I was a political nerd. I tuned into these programs, especially when I was much younger. And I saw an evolution. I remember back in kind of 2016-ish, back when I kind of just tangentially heard about crypto. They had kind of this more kind of open-minded philosophy, like, isn't this kind of like an interesting thing? And slowly over the years, they've evolved to become more staunchly anti-crypto, because they just view it as some financial product, some financial service that's kind of unregulated and high risk, which, while it is high risk, I would agree, it's not kind of like this evil thing. The left seems to have kind of this knee-jerk reaction to any sort of financial product, and it's extremely unfortunate. I think the left is going anti-crypto. And so the fact that David Pakman is kind of open-minded to crypto, I think is really, really interesting. You know what, too, man? If I can continue to kind of grow this YouTube channel, I would love to reach out to David Pakman in the future and have a conversation about not just politics, but crypto with him as well. I think he would have a very kind of interesting perspective on finance, investing, crypto, especially coming from the left. And I would be very curious to get his take on how the left views cryptocurrency and how that view has evolved and where it could evolve moving forward, especially if, guys, once we get regulatory clarity in the United States, and it's, you could buy, or once we get that Bitcoin ETF, and it's, you can buy that Bitcoin ETF and put it into your 401k. These things, these crypto is going to become more and more mainstream, and so it's going to be interesting to see how the left tackles this issue moving forward. And so I think someone like David Pakman would be kind of an interesting temperature check in that regard. What's David saying? I'm not open to David Pakman since he mocks God so openly. I'm not sure if he does mock God openly. Maybe, I don't know, maybe referring to something I didn't pick up on. Is David Pakman religious? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what his views are on religion. But yeah, folks, in terms of the debate performance, I would say that Vivek Ramaswamy so far is a clear winner in terms of energy, in terms of saying controversial things, regardless of whether you agree with his opinion or not. Just in terms of the performance of the whole thing, Vivek, I think, is a clear leader. I think he comes out benefiting from this thing. I wouldn't be surprised if in the upcoming polling we see after this debate, Vivek has benefited, continues his rise. I wouldn't even be surprised if he flips Ron DeSantis or what's the governor of Florida. I keep forgetting the buddy's name. What was it? DeSantis. Yeah, DeSantis. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. The upcoming debates. Also, maybe something I was kind of considering doing after this debate is taking a look at the Trump interview with Tucker Carlson. Although I don't know, guys, this stream's getting kind of long. I don't know if you guys want to go on. Okay, debate's back.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us. I grew up in a small town. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, widow of 3, went back to work. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Our cities are less safe because of the fentanyl pouring into this country. Our economy is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump. One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now. And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands of North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can almost see beyond that horizon, you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation. We've got to cut the red tape. We got to drive ourselves forward. The way we win the Cold War with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
Well, we hope you're back on your horse soon, Governor.
Governor Hutchinson.
Our nation is in trouble, and it's in trouble because of failed leadership. And the solution is not 4 more years of Joseph Biden. The solution is not 4 more years of Donald Trump. The solution is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America. A president's number one responsibility is to bring out the best of our people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope for our country, with consistent conservatism. That's exactly what I bring. As president, I'll bring out the best of America in terms of individual responsibility, building our economy, in terms of securing our border, enforcing the rule of law. I'll bring out the best of America in terms of our national character, our faith, and our hope for the future. Join in this fight, asa2024.com.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Thank you. I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I have the good fortune of a mom who works 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men.
Wow.
I'm Tim Scott. I'm asking you for your vote. And if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more information or to make a contribution.
Governor Christie.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Martha. Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States. And the only way that's going to happen is if we beat Joe Biden. I'm the only one on this stage who's ever beaten a Democratic incumbent in an election. I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating a Democratic incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth, who cared about accountability, and stood strong and hard against waste. Those are the very things that I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey, and it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United States. Believe me, the Democrats want some other nominee who's never beaten the Democratic incumbent. I'm the one who can win this race, and if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Thank you. Governor Haley.
Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael, a combat veteran from Afghanistan, off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they had never been, all in the name of protecting America. If they are willing to protect us from there, we should be willing to fight for America here. I will beat Joe Biden, and he knows that. I will strengthen our economy, and we'll bring this inflation down. We will put transparency in the classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save. Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and let's get it done.
Vice President Pence.
Thank you, Brad and Martha, for this evening. It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, their war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties, and the American people have had enough. But I know we can bring it back. But different times called for different leadership. The Republican Party owes the American people a choice. Proven leadership at the national level that knows how to move a conservative agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around faster than you can imagine. And I have faith we will again. Because I have faith in the American people. The good, decent, hardworking, faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided this nation since we arrived on these wilderness shores, I know the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself tonight. Thank you.
Governor DeSantis. Governor?
This is our time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement, and we will reverse the decline of this country. I'm a blue-collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to make ends meet. I understand the importance of the American dream, and I know how that's slipped away from so many millions of Americans. We'll restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above self. I'm also a dad and a husband to 6'5" and 3-year-old. I understand the importance of protecting parents' rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break. We're not getting a mulligan, no excuses. I will get the job done. And as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you all.
Wow. Well, we want to say thank you. Thank you to all the candidates on the stage tonight, and thank you to Milwaukee.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the campaign trail from debates to primaries to the general election and the conventions before that. Thanks for joining us. Sean Hannity from the Spin Rooms.
All right, so that's the debate. I'll have my full analysis tomorrow. If you're heading.
All right. That is the debate. Yeah, folks. So look, in terms of my opinion, who benefited from this debate, who kind of stood out, it was clear. I think who stood out, who I think stands to benefit the most was Vivek Ramaswamy. If we go back to the polling, folks, Trump is in a clear lead. DeSantis is in second place, doing nothing but losing support. Ramaswamy is having a recent surge, and I think he showed out this debate stage. You know, the debate stage is a bunch of these public debates, the official RNC sponsored debates. Our massive advertising campaign, a massive platform to essentially get a bunch of free advertising. And I think, you know, Vivek Ramaswamy had really high energy, great energy. He said controversial things and he stood out. And most importantly, I think he did a better job than anyone else of differentiating yourself. Again, folks, regardless of opinion, who separated themselves the most? It was Vivek Ramaswamy, and with his recent surge, I think he probably benefits from this. Who knows if he flips DeSantis? DeSantis, I think, had a very average performance. He looked kind of weak. He looked kind of tepid. Again, my analysis, my takeaway with DeSantis is the same thing I've been saying all stream, which is he delivered standard Republican talking points competently. And when you're in this far, and when you have this much of a gap from second to first place, and you're going down, just simply competently delivering standard Republican talking points isn't enough. And so I think DeSantis probably continues to either maintain or probably lose given this performance. In terms of who else stood out, I think Nikki Haley, I believe. And also Governor Chris Christie, I think, kind of stood out. Pence and the other people on the stage, just standard boring Republican politicians. I'm for the military and I'll cut your taxes. Great. You know, that you should vote for Trump then, or vote for DeSantis. So Dave is saying it's finally over. Yeah, guys, it's over. What I was thinking I might do, but who knows? It's goddamn fucking 2.5 hours, so I might not do it. I might wrap things up. But what I thought might be interesting is taking a look at the Trump interview with Tucker Carlson, because Trump, you know, very famously is not so far participating in these debates. He is kind of the ahead of the pack right now. And so for him to kind of not be attending the debates is kind of very interesting. Recorded interview with Tucker Carlson that was premiering at the same time of the debate, I believe. And so, guys, we're 2.5 hours in, quite a ways in. But why don't we take a look, maybe very briefly, at the interview, just get a sense of Trump's energy, see if he still has it, if he's been kind of rattled by these recent indictments he's been facing. So, you know, for those of you who want to stick around, I appreciate it. I'm probably going to watch this by myself after anyways. You know, I have the night off. I'll probably just hit the gym, call it a night after this. So why not? Let's take a look at this. Do we have the spinning wheel of death? All right, let me, hold on. Here we go. All right, so I'll share my screen. And we'll take a look at the Trump Carlson interview.
It's debate night, but we're not in Milwaukee.
Oh no, the circle of death already. So, folks, you know, let me know if you guys. Okay, hold on. Oh no,
Mr. President, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Why aren't you at the Fox News debate?
so we're having some buffering issues. Folks, let me know if you guys appreciate this kind of content. I think I do want to do more political coverage moving forward whenever there's something kind of interesting happening, at least, and whenever I have the time. Also, something that might be worth taking a look at perhaps after
tonight in Milwaukee.
Well, you know, a lot of people have been asking me.
Oh my God, that's painful. Okay, hold on. All right, so something else of note that's been happening in the meanwhile. Let's see if we can get that to load for a second. So Richard Hart has been tweeting out a couple things that I'm blocked, so I can't really show you guys. But what I do want to show you is a retweet that had a bunch of screenshots. So, so hold on, folks. Let's see if I can pull up some of Richard Hart's recent tweets. Bear with me for a second here. Yeah, all right. So, Richard Hart, thankfully, seems to have a bit of fire in him. He's, you know, he was pretty absent, not really talking about the whole SEC situation. But now, you know, this is the closest he's gotten, I think, to directly addressing the SEC issue, if I'm not wrong. So far, he's tweeting saying laws to limit the government's access to financial data, the Right to Financial Privacy Act of 1978, Kind Hearts for Charitable Human, Devel v. Geither 647. So he's essentially stating or citing a bunch of case law that I think is relevant to, you know, the current SEC situation. So the fact that Richard Hart's out here kind of tweeting these things shows that he has a little bit of fight in him. It shows that he's not, you know, it's good to see Richard Hart kind of not tiptoeing around this issue. Like the fact that Richard Hart's just been completely silent when he promoted himself as a public intellectual, public thought leader, someone who's willing to fight the fight. And then for him to go from that to completely silence, not addressing anything. I mean, of course, I'm sure his lawyers told him not to say anything. And I understand that if your lawyers say, hey, hey, Richard, shut the fuck up. Like, you know, it's going to be detrimental. I understand that, but it's really hard to square this peg, guys. Because again, Richard Hart did promote himself as a public thought leader, someone who's willing to engage in these different, you know, and fight something out. And so for him to kind of do a complete 180 and ignore the biggest fight of his life, you know, there's some good reason as to why, you know, people are starting to kind of question Richard Hart. But the fact that he's now tweeting this out shows that he's got a little bit of fight in him, which is reassuring to see. Because in times like this, folks, you know, it's easy to lose patience. It's easy to lose faith. And so to see Richard Hart kind of back out here is nice to see. Now, let's see if we can play this. Hold on. Oh my goodness. You know what? You know what's funny? I think I have 5G. I have 5G and my computer can't handle, or my Wi-Fi, my data can't handle having a handful of tabs open. So look, folks, you know, I wanted to perhaps take a look at kind of the bit of the Trump interview, just have a bit of a juxtaposition as to what we just saw with the you know, non-Trump, you know, the GOP field with the debate stage here. But I'm not sure if the Wi-Fi wants to permit us seeing this. So okay, hold on, let's see. Nope. Okay, guys, look, I'm sorry. I wanted to see this with you, but it just refuses to load. I could continue just hitting the refresh button for the next 10 minutes here, but we've gone for kind of 2.5 hours, close to 3. So yeah, guys, I think I might get close to wrapping it up here. In terms of, again, just to reiterate major takeaways, you know, I think Vivek Ramaswamy probably surges from this. Ron DeSantis had a lackluster, uninspiring performance, and Trump continues to be in the lead. And I think Trump will probably go against Biden unless something catastrophic happens this campaign. And then in terms of what's going on in the crypto landscape, I mean, folks, look, you know, this whole SEC nonsense, like I mentioned the day of, it is a suppressant. It will act as a suppressor, scaring and buy pressure. It will incentivize sell pressure. It is increasing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The risk has most definitely increased. Very, very few projects have dumped 99+% like Hex and come back. But in my opinion, the most attractive thing with Hex is that it was always a contrarian play. It was always wildly misunderstood, and that hasn't changed. Like Hex was to me like another Bitcoin, something that in its inception was wildly misunderstood. But over time, through its continued proven success, people were forced to change their minds. And so I'm betting that Hex is another one of those plays, but we never know for sure. You know, I want to always be honest with you guys. I think the risk has most definitely increased. I think the SEC investigations, whole, Richard Hart misappropriating the use of donor funds, Pulse Chain, PulseX, Hex being unregistered securities, I think that will suppress the price until that issue settled. And that might take 1 year, that might take 2 years, it might take 3 years, it might take a long time. And there's even some debate as to whether or not, the ecosystem sits out this next bull run. I don't think it does, but I don't think it'll do as well as if, we didn't have the SEC issue. So who knows, folks? I'm personally holding for the long term. For myself, I don't think it makes sense at all to sell into extreme fear. Guys, well, I don't know for sure what this is going to do. What I have learned is that it pays to buy good valuations. It pays to buy into fear. It pays to buy into things that are wrongly misunderstood. It pays to buy into things early. And that's the situation I find ourselves with Pulse Chain, with PulseX, with Hex. And so I'll keep the faith while understanding that the risk has mostly definitely increased, while understanding that until this SEC situation is over, the potential price performance is suppressed. And while all this is going on, there will be, a great degree of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. With that all being said, I think there's a non-zero chance that the macro bottom could be in, or at least very goddamn close to. So, where there's risk, there is reward. So, folks, I also want to let you know that I have gotten a second job. So I will be more predisposed than usual. I might just go to uploading kind of once a week, streaming once a week. My days off, something like that. We'll see. I want to upload whenever there's kind of something interesting, whenever there's something to be said. But I just want to, for the people watching this and for the people watching the rewatch, I am going to be more busy moving forward than I was before. But I do want to kind of stick to at least kind of weekly uploads for sure. And if you guys want to stay up to date with what I'm thinking kind of more day to day, I'm very active on Twitter almost on a daily basis. So if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, there's a link down in the description below. Ultimately, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in with me, having this little kind of debate watch party with me. I'll probably be having these moving forward for the kind of for the primaries, for the generals, Canadian elections, maybe some other elections as well if I find them interesting. So, folks, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Until next time, take care, guys.